Hello, my name is Veronica, and I'm the CEO and founder of Didimo. I've been working on the creation of digital humans for probably about 15 years. I'm a researcher at Porto University as well, and I've been in love of creating digital characters, I'd say forever. Very much focused on creating digital characters for the entertainment industry. But let me share something that I think is extremely relevant. If we think about it, every 60 seconds, people around the world is trying to make connections. In one way or another, they're trying to connect. They're sending text messages, they're sending new YouTube videos. Probably some of you watching this are checking your mobile phones while I try to share my story about why we create digital humans and what is it all about. So we're born to be connected, but there's one key thing that is missing today in this new digital era, which is digital humans that can express emotion in order to build trustworthy connections. So that's a little bit what I want to try to talk to you about today. Is about how do we build digital humans and what does it mean to build trustworthy connections. So the metaverse is here. And it's going to be used for many things in many ways. We will be able to experience and create new shopping experiences. We're going to be able to invent new ways on how we play online. We're going to be using the metaverse for learning infinite things, even for purposes that we haven't even thought about, that probably my kids will come up with new ideas. But the metaverse needs one thing to work. It needs people that we can trust and that we can connect with. We need to build identities. So let's think about it. First, above all, right? We're building digital people that can have cartoon characters look, or they can be photorealistic. So this is a 3D representation of myself. It's a static. It doesn't have behavior yet. Right? The next thing we got to do is just how do we bring emotion and movement into these digital humans, right? And so the four things that we got to think about. The first one is who will populate these worlds. Second is who gets to participate in these worlds. What type of people, which is our target audience, which is the users, who are the consumers, right? Who will participate and what terms are we going to be using in order to populate and make these virtual worlds a safe place to be? And most important, which is the value for the humans in order to make a conscious decision of creating an extension of us into this virtual world? One element is for sure that we need to take into consideration is building trust. So when we build trust between a person and another person, we are in contact constantly. But how can we build trust with us being real and the virtual self that we have on a 3D world? We got to think about a few elements. One is this interaction that we are having with this virtual character authentic? We will want to know who is actually engaging on the other side of the screen. And we need to have this clarity, because otherwise we will for sure not spend any money, any time, or build any emotion into these virtual worlds if we do not know who is on the other side of the screen, right? So I don't have all the answers, but I encourage everyone that is watching is to start thinking about how can we build methods and processes in order to set up the foundation for creating authentic connections. What you see on your right is a selfie that we have uploaded into our own system, and that it can automatically create a digital version of us. Once we know if the other person, if the connection that we have on the other side is authentic and who are we connecting with, we need to define the key elements for identity. So we need to understand, first of all, what makes that digital character unique. Second, is it interesting? Do we really want to connect with the other person on the other side, represented by this digital character? And then third, we need to understand that most of our communication is expressed by our behavior, our face movements, our body movements. So can we transfer our body movements and our face movements into a digital representation. Once we start feeling that the digital character that is on the digital world is an extension of us, we can start building that core trust, right? So that leads us to which ways are we going to use in order to create our extension of ourselves, our virtual representation. And there are two tendencies. On one side, we have cartoon avatar type, and on the other side, we have digital human technology. So both are good, both are correct. There's not like good or bad or one or the other. Most probably, what is going to happen is people are going to start building their portable identities, and they're going to maybe in some cases use a dinosaur or a cartoon character, but in many other occasions, they will need to have a digital human representation, especially if you want to do things like virtual try-on of garments and you want to buy online, or if you want to have, you want to learn or teach something to someone else. So there are key moments that if we want to have an authentic connection, the only way that that is going to happen is if we see ourselves on that digital character. So it's like I always tell my kids, right? When you put your face into the internet, it'll stay there forever. So you gotta be responsible of what you're gonna do on that on the virtual world or in the internet, right? So once we see ourselves, it just brings accountability. Right? So that's why a lot of the work that I have done in the past and still today focus on building one-on-one lifelike representations of digital characters. So let me tell you why building these digital characters is so hard and so difficult. So first is usually something that has been extremely explored by AAA games or Hollywood movies. It's a very sequential process, usually requires many engineers, a lot of artists, very expensive equipment. So suddenly if it's not automated, as we can see here, it's a very sequential step, it becomes non-scalable and therefore it's not economically viable for many, many industries. So the question is, how can we automate the whole process in order to put it in the hands of users and consumers? So a lot has been spoken into moving from a centralized mindset to a decentralized world. How can we put in the hands of the users the ability of creating content? So that only happens if you can actually automate the whole process of, in this case, creating digital characters. So that's what we have done. We have pretty much unlock this huge potential of putting in the hands of everyone the ability of creating digital characters. You can input a selfie, a photo, a scan data, and that goes into the cloud. And after 90 seconds, you can get back a fully animatable digital character. So the animations that you see here on the screen, they are created using a mobile phone, using the AR kit, and you can in real time animate your own self if you wish. So we pretty much have encapsulated all that sequential process that usually requires a lot of equipment and a lot of artists. So now we can say that the creation of digital humans can pretty much be streamlined. In this case, we have an example of, okay, again, we take a selfie, we upload it into the cloud, we get back the digital character. But what happens and where can we use this technology, right? In order to make it available for everyone and streamline it, we have to make sure that the output can be adapted to different platforms, right? And that's also not something really easy because you need to prepare the digital characters in terms of their morphology or their technical specifications that need to be able to run on mobile devices or on VR headsets, or they should also be able to be used for game consoles or streaming, and the qualities are completely different, right? So when building a technology that will be at the end of the day an extension of yourself, and you want to make sure that you can use it in as many places as possible. So the architecturing of the system needs to be thought in a way that can be platform agnostic and at the end of the day industry agnostic. And this is just another example, just highlighting how when you create your digital human, and in this case, you do it by taking a selfie. Usually we have all these different type of contrast and shadows and different type of illumination. So what we have to do when we build this type of technology is make sure that we normalize the digital character, and in some way we want to make it more beautiful, right? And it can be adapted into any environment. So putting this once we wrap about, okay, we talk about why we need digital characters for the metaverse and the importance of building authentic and technology and characters that we can share among the internet. And we talked about how complex it is to build digital characters. The 4 key elements that we need to keep in mind when we're building such a technology is that people is very used to watching humans and seeing faces and seeing digital humans. So every nuance that doesn't feel right, the digital character, we kind of feel a little bit creepy, right? So there are 4 things that are needed in order to build digital characters for virtual environments like the metaverse in this case. First, the representation, it has to be accurate in terms of its morphology and in terms of its behavior. So it has to move like we move, and it has to be morphologically correct in terms of our own shape and form of the face. We need to create the characters as fast as possible because people don't want to wait. So that one is a no-brainer. It needs to be scalable in the sense that the technology needs to be able to create hundreds and thousands of digital characters really fast at the same time, again, with no manual intervention. And then the digital humans need to be able to adapt. And by adapt, I mean personalize. So once we create the foundation, which is the face and the body, we need to be able to allow the users the possibility of customizing it and personalize it so they can actually feel that it's becoming them and it's becoming their own identity. So if identity and trust are key, we must design for it, right? And I'll deep dive a little bit more on what I mean design for it. So when we were first building DDMO and the technology for DDMO, one of the very first things we did is we set up an ethic advisor team in order to talk internally and be all conscious about what does it mean to be responsible for the technology that we're building, right? So designing a technology that can help build trust, for us, it represents one is how do we want to make that the authenticity of our digital characters translated into the software that we deliver, right? How can we make sure that we can protect the human rights of the users that are using our technology? And then lastly is how can we evolve this technology so we can create positive experiences? So all this is, at the end of the day, is translated on one side on the algorithms that we developed, on the way we own the code, but most important is on the assumptions and on the strong belief that the users are the ones that are going to be owning that digital human, that identity, right? So it's them. They are the ones that they can decide what they want to use. We should be just a provider of the methods to create the digital characters, right? So with that in mind, we built DDMO with a few core beliefs. One is that everyone must be able to have access to the data. Everyone must have their own ownership of their identity. And lastly, everyone must be able to represent themselves as they wish, right? And that takes us to one of the conclusions, which is that there's only one way we can build trust and maximize the potential of the metaverse, which is by putting these 3 core beliefs at the center of our decision-making process. So in order to build that trust, we define 4 pillars within the company. One is that the users will always own that identity, that all the data that we have will be collectively transparent. We will always give credentials to the sourcing of the code that we generate. And most importantly, there's going to be interoperability and transferability of those digital characters. So I have a good call to action for everyone that is listening here, that I would love for you to reach out to us if you are either companies or developers, and if you want to populate the virtual world and the metaverse, and help us build, that thesis behind how we build authentic digital humans for creating more enriching experience, more engaging experience, and bringing value into the brands, the companies, and most important, to allow a new way on how people will interact in the future. We strongly believe that digital humans are going to become the next interaction model, and therefore I'll invite you to give us all your thoughts and your feedback in terms of what you think the next interaction model would look like. So let's make the digital world more human. My name is Veronica, and thank you for listening.
Pá, isto foi só fascinante e um pouco assustador. Eu quando tiver assim o meu avatar, ela vai ser alta e espadaúda. Preparem-se para o próximo momento. Já agora, obrigada Verónica, eu achei fascinante. Preparem-se para o próximo momento, porque vai ser igualmente fascinante. Prometo. O Dr. Peter Scott Morgan é um cientista anglo-americano de renome que foi diagnosticado com uma doença que causa degeneração das células nervosas motoras. E chegaram a dar-lhe apenas 2 anos de vida. Ok? Ele, não disposto a desistir, reuniu uma equipa de médicos e empresas tecnológicas para desenvolver soluções que lhe permitissem não só manter-se vivo, mas também alargar os limites do que significa ser humano e dar esperança aos outros. Isto é extraordinário. Junte-se a esta sessão com o Dr. Peter e Sukil Gill, da CTO, da DXC Technology, e fica a saber mais sobre a história de Peter e conhecer o seu novo avatar digital, Peter 2.0. Ora veja.